What is up, studs, and welcome to Ask MandR episode 354. On this episode, we're going to talk about possible UCS remakes for the rest of the decade, Battlefront 3 and the recent hype surrounding it, a 327th Trooper leak, and much more. If you have a question or topic for next week's episode, as always, please leave in the comment section below, hit the like button while you're there, and let's get into it with our first question from Falaise, who says, have you seen the Plo Koon mod on the Jedi Bob Starfighter? If so, what is your opinion? And I looked it up. It is a rebrickable rebuild of Plo Koon Starfighter and a LEGO Creator seaplane, and it basically allows you to have all the dark blue pieces that you need to create a Plo Koon Starfighter with using Jedi Bob Starfighter kind of as the base, and it's a really good alternate build, pretty much on par with what you would want the official model to look like. And it's usually not the case when you get alternate builds like this, but combining these two sets just turns out to be a pretty perfect looking Plo Koon Starfighter to me. I think it's something I'm gonna have to build for myself. I'm gonna have to give it a shot. Once I get the microfighter in hand, I can do a nice little YouTube short or something with it. This is one of the better alternate builds that, in the sense that it looks like an actual Lego set that Lego would release, that I think I've ever seen. Big E says, you talk about Lego downsizing in order to keep prices down, but what do you think the long-term plan is for Lego? Downsizing feels like plugging a hole because you can only downsize so much, and assuming inflation steadily continues, eventually down the road, Lego is going to be backed into a corner where they have to charge $100 for a 500-piece X-Wing. And you're totally right. It's basically Lego kicking the can down the road. I do this with plenty of things in life, and a Lego basically is probably doing the same thing here, because there's just no way to avoid the real fact that at some point, a battle pack, for example, is going to cost $50, $60, $70, etc., etc. And it's no different when you look back in history. You see the little signs of Coca-Cola. It's like 5 cents for a can of Coca-Cola or a bottle of Coca-Cola. Now it's like $2 at 7-Eleven. So we can already see things like that throughout history, and there's no real reason to believe that Lego would end up being any different here. The biggest thing I think is, like, it's usually over generations that you're going to see the biggest changes. And so, like, to me, I never had the opportunity to buy a Coca-Cola for 5 cents. So, it's not like I knew how great it was when it was 5 cents, but also you made a lot less money back in 1900 when it was 5 cents. So there's a lot of trade-offs there too. I know people will say that wages aren't keeping up with inflation, which is a whole nother thing I'm not necessarily qualified to talk about. But the point is, the inflation thing where prices were much lower in the past and they're now much higher has happened on this kind of similar scale with plenty of other things. And so Lego is not going to be able to avoid it. They will at some point in the near future, I think, run out of the ability to keep using shrinkflation. And so you will just see prices relative to, like, the ship, right? An X-Wing in 2021 was $50. The X-Wing in 2006 was $50. So over 15 years, the price stayed the same. The set just got a little bit smaller, but they can't really make that X-Wing much smaller, in my opinion. So the next X-Wing, the price will truly feel higher. But again, it's kind of a generational thing where, like, let's say I was 9 years old in 2006 when that $50 X-Wing came out, and then the next 9-year-old that's 9 years old in 2021 when that $50 X-Wing comes out, like, to them, the other one just basically didn't exist. And so I also think it's very much a problem that is very specific to, like, AFOLs that think about this, and that, like, parents buying sets for kids don't think about this. But AFOLs are a big portion of Lego's business, and so the fact that people think about this is a problem for Lego too, whether or not, like, it's something that's avoidable. I don't know. Kind of adding on to this in a very specific Star Wars sense, AK4E7 says, do you think Lego will ever do another ultimate space battle type of Star Wars sets, or are those days over? And I think this goes to shrinkflation and inflation just in general. Also, just the way that Lego's philosophy with the builds of their sets has changed. If you look at a Jedi Starfighter from 2005, it's very slim compared to the new Ahsoka Starfighter. I know Ahsoka Starfighter is $45 and it's insane, right? The Ultimate Space Battle back in 2005 was $50. So for $5 more, you got way more things. The problem is, though, if you just took those builds, did inflation on it, you're maybe at $100 or whatever for that Ultimate Space Battle. But with the way Lego makes their sets and prices their sets today, if they were to do an Ultimate Space Battle like that, you're looking at $90 just for the Jedi Starfighters, plus a couple of Vulture droids, which would probably be $30 each. So you're quickly at $150, and you still need your Vulture droid, or your Tri-Droid rather. And now you're at $180 for an Ultimate Space Battle set that, inflation adjusted, would still cost less than $100 today. So part of the problem is also Lego's philosophy with builds, and not that they're doing a bad thing by making their builds really nice and accurate and sturdy, right? Compared to 2005, the new modern Jedi Starfighter builds, save for the canopy piece, which is just atrocious looking, are very nice. And so, yeah, you can see they've improved, but also the price tag comes with it, and then you get, yeah, I don't think we're ever going to go back to stuff like that. It's just not feasible, in my opinion, which sucks, but, if they could just make cool standalone sets, it'll work, but They're having some trouble there too sometimes. Dainted Piazza says, we want Battlefront 3. Boy, this comment has been everywhere for the past couple of weeks. Just literally people will just type on TikTok, Battlefront 3. They're like straight into the point. They don't even put the we want in front of it. They're just like you know what I want, Battlefront 3. Yeah, there's some real hype around the idea that EA should make this game. I'm surprised that they wouldn't make the game anyway. I would look at a Star Wars Battlefront franchise like Call of Duty looks at its Call of Duty franchise and like Modern Warfare titles and Black Ops titles, and I would just be, Battlefront might not have the Call of Duty power of releasing a title every year, but if you do every 3 or 4 years, you can just keep milking that cash cow in perpetuity. And the way microtransactions are today compared to what they were in 2017, but then again, Disney, Star Wars might just be using that Fortnite money instead, and they might not care and they might not want a Battlefront 3 to kind of cut into the Fortnite business model where they're getting $20 a skin. Mind you, a Battlefront 3 game would cost $60, $70 or whatever it is. Versus if people buy 3 skins, which cost them a lot less to make than a whole game, they're making a ton more money on their profit margin. So I bet part of that is the reason that they don't make another game or haven't made another game yet. But with the fan demand out there, they'd be quite stupid, in my opinion, to not make Battlefront 3. But I think if they made a Battlefront 3, I'd feel obligated to play just a little bit. When they came out with Battlefront 2, I played that, and it was really enjoyable. It was like, I remember like for the first time, the Star Wars music was in my ears, and I was flying around in one of the space battles, and I was like, man, it feels like I'm in Star Wars. This is cool. And, I haven't played it a ton, but that was a really cool feeling. And I totally loved playing the original games. I played the original Battlefront 1 and 2 on the PlayStation 2 to death. We as like in my neighborhood, kids would come over and we would play split screen. Some epic battles. I remember one time my friend was like flying behind me. I was, I think, in a Y-wing in front of him, and I switched to the gunner seat, turned around, and shot him. It was awesome. So, dude, like, yeah, the games are great. I know I'm talking about the older ones there, but the newer ones are pretty good too, especially the graphics on them are just incredible. I was blown away by that, honestly, when I played it. But yeah, even if it's not something that I'm like dying to have and play myself, I really hope everyone gets what they want there. Battlefront 3 would be incredible, I think, for the community. Somewhat piggybacking off that, similar situation from 2020. I'm Really That Guy says, I was recently rewatching your video of you reacting to the image of the Fileverse Battle Pack being revealed. So wholesome. Is there another dream set that will rekindle that same reaction? I never thought I would be this excited about it. The short answer, I think, is no. If there was going to be a set, maybe it would be a UT-AT with Galactic Marines, Ki-Adi-Mundi, and Commander Bakara, especially after what LEGO is apparently going to do this summer and butcher that opportunity, in a way, I feel like when the Celtics lost the 2022 finals and then won the 2024 finals and all the other playoff losses before that, it makes the win feel better. And so maybe not getting a UT-AT now makes getting a UT-AT later feel better, and it would make me react like that. But at the same time, a lot of things have gone poorly over the last 5 years, like in just very different ways. Don't even need to get into details. Many of you know exactly what I mean when I say that. And there's a lot of things that I mean. But I mean, I just don't think I should allow myself to feel that way about LEGO after what they've done and how they've, yeah, it just sucks all around, right? Like clearly I loved it. Clearly I was a really big fan. Why would you do that? So I don't think I would ever allow myself to feel that way. Could I be excited about things? Am I still excited? Jedi Bob Starfighter is another great example. Very excited about Jedi Bob Starfighter. Absolutely love it. I was so excited and grateful that they brought Jedi Bob back. I would never feel the way I did about the Fileverse Battle Pack. It was also special. It was it was a whole thing too. So yeah, for many reasons, the answer is probably, most unfortunately, no. But I got sports to care about still. Arch says, what old UCS sets do you think might be remade within the next 5 to 6 years? Do you think the Y-Wing, B-Wing, Snowspeeder, and normal TIE Fighter will be remade anytime soon? Should I wait or just go ahead looking at much more expensive retired sets? And so I'm going to go and give you what UCS sets I think will be remade by the end of the decade, which is crazy that we are in the second half of the decade, but let's get into it. So I think the recent Jabba Sail Barge and Slave One show that there's a lot of untapped material as far as UCS sets go, and specifically as it pertains to Jango Fett's UCS Slave One, in that they're willing to get pretty niche with it. So I think the opportunity for new, fresh ideas as far as UCS sets go is really wide open for the rest of the decade, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them trying a lot more different things. That being said, if I were LEGO and I was going to remake some UCS sets to close out this decade, there's quite a few that I would want to remake. Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of what is on your list there, what you wanted to buy specifically, would be what I would have remade. The Y-Wing Snowspeeder and normal TIE Fighter are all sets that have been released within the last decade. Frankly, as much as it sucks to hear it, I just wouldn't touch those yet. I wouldn't touch those till the 2030s. The B-Wing is a maybe, and I still think because of the new canopy piece on the Jedi Starfighter, the B-Wing is very likely. But again, that canopy piece can be used at any point going forward for many, many years. It doesn't necessarily need to be done right now. So that it still comes with an asterisk, of course. Here's what I think, though. A UCS Darth Vader's TIE Fighter has to be the next, TIE Fighter release, in my opinion. You could do a TIE Bomber, sure, but the TIE Fighter has been done in 2015, TIE Interceptor 2024, Vader's TIE was 2006. It's close to a modern look, but it's definitely a little dated. And so I think that one would be remade before any of what you see on your list. We're also apparently getting a pseudo UCS ATST remake this summer, which we still don't know if it's going to be actually labeled UCS, but it will effectively fill that gap, whether or not it actually carries the name. We also know we're getting some sort of Death Star later in the year, but we'll kind of ignore that one. The other two that I think I'm big on seeing a remake of are Boba Fett's Slave One, specifically because of how great the design on the new Jango Fett Slave One is. And so when that set retires, 2027, I think Boba's is going to come out. And then we also have the UCS Imperial Shuttle that I think has just always been there as a good candidate to see a remake of at some point. And so I think those are kind of my most likely few remakes for the closeout of the decade. So we're really talking the next 4 years. You get into 2030, 2031, obviously a lot more opportunities open up, but even with new movies coming out, we're going to see stuff like, I think Mando's N1 Starfighter is going to take up a slot. Right now we're working with basically 2 slots a year, so Mando's N1 Starfighter takes up a slot. You can't just do remakes, so you're going to bring in some fresh stuff. So I think you could end up with potentially as low as 3 remakes. We also, it's still sitting there. The UCS Millennium Falcon could be something we see updated one of these years. 2027, I think, could be a huge year for that, seeing as it's the 50th anniversary of Star Wars overall. And then we got to consider Master Builder Series, which would also take up a slot of what could be one of these UCS sets in the Ewok Village or Battle of Endor type of set that has been long rumored or talked about, maybe more wish listed, but it's a set that absolutely is going to happen. We all know that at some point they're going to release a set like that. So in my opinion, with the sets you have listed there, everything but the B-Wing, I would probably just bite the bullet on. The B-Wing, because of that new canopy piece, I think is kind of likely to happen by the end of the decade. But hopefully that's some good advice for you and some good insight into what I think LEGO Star Wars will do for the rest of the decade. Next up from Tominator says, are we getting a 327th Battle Pack this summer? Yeah, it's leaked in multiple ways. There's been pictures kind of floating out there for quite a while now, and it's definitely happening. We recently got a really good leak of the helmet of the 327th Trooper, and it's disappointing. It is just a render, which frankly doesn't mean it's going to look better. It means it's going to look worse than what we see here. At best, it could look the same. I can't show you the picture. It could look the same as the picture if you've seen it out there. If recent history is anything to go off, it will look worse than what we see in the picture, unfortunately. I don't think the design is all too accurate either. They definitely made it too tapered out. It definitely needed to be a thinner line on the top of the helmet. It's just little stupid things that they get wrong for no reason type of deal. You know how LEGO Star Wars is these days. Also in that picture, we can't see the side of the helmet, so we don't know if they fixed the double helmet wart thing. That's a whole issue too. We obviously don't know anything else about the design of the rest of the figure, but if you guys recall back to the original leak of this set when it was a confidential picture or whatever, and they were using fill-ins of 212 troopers. Obviously, 212 troopers aren't actually in the set. It is going to be 327 troopers. And so, yeah, that discussion is settled, I guess. But yeah, still a lot to wait on. And honestly, I'm not excited to see what this final helmet print looks like. It can't be good, can it? And customs companies have been doing great 327th helmet prints for a long time. And to see LEGO finally come out with another one and it just be bad is not surprising, I guess. Next up from James says, do you think they're rumored to start using a plastic pauldron to cut down on cloth usage in Star Wars? If so, is this why they did away with cloth camas? Why are they trying to remove so much cloth from this specific theme? Cloth is a rare earth metal, basically. That's what LEGO Star Wars treats it like at this point. It's actually insane. At first was very okay and excited about these plastic pauldrons, and if they look good, they look good. We'll be good with that. But it does signify to me, with the lack of cloth pauldron on the Boba Fett in the Return of the Jedi set, we're missing out on some real cool detailed figures that we could have had and should be having, and I'm sure it'll continue to be a problem going forward. Like, you're just not going to put cloth in these sets. Like, why? Like, you're putting it in other sets, you're giving other figures wayscapes. Just Lego Star Wars, the minifig people guy, seems to have some huge issue with just giving figures the proper detailed things. I have no idea why, but obviously it's an issue. I don't think they're necessarily trying to cut down on cloth usage because it's cloth, you know, for that particular reason. I think it's probably because it costs money. You know, it almost always boils down to money from what I can tell, from what I've learned over the years. The answer usually, and it sucks because it's like you want a real good answer to something and you're like, hey, why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why is it? The answer is money. Most of the time it's money, and it honestly it's sad. Other than like blatant like design flaws, like when the minifig designer just like gets Commander Fox wrong on the torso because he doesn't know how to do it. I don't know. Like, that answer is not money, but most of the time when it comes down to stuff like this, the answer is money. From a billion-dollar company that's making more money year over year every year. I think the downfall of cloth and Lego Star Wars sets needs to be studied. I need to do some more research on it because it's sad to see it go the way it's gone. I always thought things would get better, and they are not getting better. MR2 says, relative Lego Star Wars noob here, I'd love to grab the $850 Millennium Falcon before it's discontinued, but can't justify the price to the wife. If I snag a half-priced one or less on Bricklink that's complete and disassembled, but without the original packaging, could that be a good deal? Just short answer here on that. Yes, absolutely. Half price is very much a good deal. I just want the building experience and the finished product and don't care about the resale value, which isn't going to be super important if you're building it and displaying it, whatever. So don't worry about that anyway. And the resale value just kind of comes along anyway. That's kind of part of the territory. Like, I don't really worry about the resale value of my stuff. To me, it just feels like it's been an inherent thing with Lego collecting. Like, you buy things, you build them, you display them, and then a lot of the time later down the line, if you ever want to get rid of it, it happens to be worth more, which is great. And there's nothing else that you can really do other than like buying and keeping a seal in the box, I guess, to like help that. Anyway, he says she wants the Dark Falcon because of the wacky minifigs and smaller size. Help. Love the show, by the way. And look, I think you should get the Dark Falcon too. I think that's an awesome set on its own for its own reasons. But the UCS Falcon, of course, is very much like that centerpiece that everyone would want to have. If you can get it for under $500, you're doing really well. Absolutely. Now, my only caveat with buying it used on Bricklink, and I would see maybe if you can find someone that says they put it back the way that it came, which is unlikely, but some people do that because they're insane, I think, is the numbered bags part of the experience, right? You say you want the build experience. Well, the build experience of the UCS Falcon as a pile of 8,000 pieces is going to be very different than the UCS Falcon as it came with its numbered bags and boxes. You know, there's a reason that when I did my drop test in 2017, I bought the set, drop tested it, it got shattered into a million pieces. I took it all apart. I decided I would sell the set and just buy another sealed one to build because of how horrible I thought that build experience would be. I just warn you about that. But you might not care about that. Maybe it's worth taking the time to then organize all the pieces. You know, I just operate differently, clearly, than some people. That's fine. You know, you could separate all the pieces once you get them and it wouldn't be as bad. But to me, like, whenever I build something without numbered bags, I just dump all the pieces. And it's like, that's what I have. I don't organize it a lot of the time. Maybe I should be organizing it, clearly. But yeah, I think if you organize the pieces, you could alleviate a lot of that potential frustration, because if you're digging through 8,000 pieces to find one, you are going to have a heck of a time that is not going to be a good time. So yeah, I think if you can get it for $500, spend all the time to organize all the pieces, you're going to have a great time. And I would also, you know, maybe grab her the Dark Falcon to build while you're building that at the same time. Could be a fun one. So yeah, good luck with that. I hope you end up getting that because that's an amazing set. Absolutely would be great for you to have. Finally, from Rainey, he says, would you actually recommend becoming an adult fan of Lego? I wasn't into it as a kid, but now in my 30s have fully latched onto it in the last 6 months, getting plenty of Star Wars sets and especially Monkey Kid. That's interesting. Mostly into the theme on its way out. Yes, I spend way too much money on the aftermarket. Anyway, it's a bit disheartening seeing so many reviewers criticize the brand. I don't doubt it's justified, but is Lego still worth it for adults, particularly those who have no nostalgic connection? It's too late for me. I'm addicted now, but I'm curious what your opinion is. So is it worth becoming an adult fan of Lego? It's a tough thing for me to answer because I am such a unique situation and an outlier in many, many, many different ways. But I think for many, many people, like, being a Lego fan and just enjoying the hobby for being a hobby is a really great thing, and it's very enjoyable. Like the guy above that wanted I say above because of my list, but before in the video, wants that UCS Millennium Falcon. You know, it's great that he's an AFOL for him, I bet. You know, like, that is an awesome thing. And I think it very much can be case by case. Maybe it's something that's just not affordable for you, or the space is an issue, whatever the case is there. Maybe that's a reason you wouldn't want to be an adult fan of Lego or really go too far into the hobby. You know, it's even funnier too. I met a guy on COD last night. He's like, oh, I like your channel. And we were playing ranked. He's like, yeah, I spent like $400 for some Lego sets for one date night. And I'm like, yeah, that gets out of hand rather quickly for one date night. So like, yeah, the money thing can be an issue for sure too. But let's put all of that aside, I guess, because that it's kind of like the common thing. Like, is it fulfilling to be a Lego fan? And I would say yes. Like, you know, and especially because even though they're putting out a lot of products now that I think are lackluster, and part of it for me is like, I've got all the old stuff, so there's not a lot to yearn for there. Like, if you're coming into it mostly blank slate, like you are maybe 9 months ago, 8 months ago, you have a lot of things to still aspire to go and buy and track down on whatnot and buy and build and enjoy. And so when you have that much out there to go and want, even though it is more expensive than what Lego is putting out now on the secondary market, you know, there's still a lot there to enjoy from the entire history of Lego Star Wars, of the 4 years, 5 years of Lego Monkey Kid, of many other themes. And then, of course, there's still the infinite future, you know? Maybe at some point they will put out good Clone Trooper minifigs again, and things will be great. You know, there will be fulfilling stuff to come, hopefully. And there still are really great sets on a year-to-year basis, like the UCS AT-AT. You know, you could have an all-time great set kind of come out randomly like that. Death Star, $1,000 Death Star later this year. If it's good, could be an amazing set, right? If it's bad, that'll be a problem because it's $1,000. But is it worth it as an adult? I think absolutely. I think it's a really great side hobby to have. You know, got to have something else that keeps you active, I guess, too, right? I got pickup basketball. I got that nailed down. But, like, you got to have something there. But, like, as a hobby that's not, like, playing video games, scrolling TikToks, I think it's a great one. And I think relative to many other hobbies, it's generally a very nice community, you know, save for the few outliers. And my final little thought on this is what I apply to some of the purchasing decisions in my life is that the worst thing that can happen, let's say when you buy a UCS AT-AT or something, right, is that you have to sell it later. And if you sell it later, Lego generally retains its value. I know there's a lot of memes about resale value, this, that, and the other, whatever. Who cares, right? The fact is, Lego tends to retain its value, if not increase its value, very well. And so the worst thing that can happen if you sink all this money into Lego is at the end of the day, you sell it all and you break even. Maybe you lose a little, maybe you make a bunch, who knows? But it's not money that's lost forever, in my opinion. So I don't think you can go wrong there either. So anyway, let me know what you think about that in the comments section below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Hit me with a question or topic for next week's episode, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much.